Sanvanani, Hare Krishna, Melang, Molweni, hello. Wow, Happy New Year! I'm so happy to be back here. Happy 2022. I hope that everyone is doing well and having a great day, and hopefully, this is a great year for all of us. A prosperous year, a happy year, a wonderful year, a great year for devotion and devotional service. Um, this is a great way to start the year, so let's get into it. I'd like to thank our previous reader, Kula Prabhu, who gave us the first chapter or the introductory chapter to the book that we're reading, Bhakti, The Art of Eternal Love. What a beautiful book. Just the first verse was like punchy. Like many people don't know what love is. So wow, I am incredibly interested in this book. It is so fascinating, and this chapter is going to be phenomenal. So we're on the first chapter of this book, but before we get started, we have to start with our magical invocation. Epi 2022. Okay, let's go. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, let's get into it. So, the first chapter reads, What is the nectar of devotion? The nectar of devotion is a summary study to the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is written in Sanskrit by Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada. He is the chief of the 6 Goswamis, who were the direct disciples of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When he first met Lord Chaitanya, Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada was engaged as a minister in the Muslim government in Bengal, India. He and his brother Sanatan were named Dabari Kasa and Sankara Malika, respectively, and he held responsible posts as ministers in the Nawab Hassan Shah. At the time, the 500 years ago, the Hindu society was very rigid, and if a member of the Brahmana caste accepted a position of service under a Muslim ruler, he was at once rejected by the Brahmana society. Have you guys read? I think it's how they got initiated or how they met Lord Chaitanya. And the two brothers are saying to Lord Chaitanya, um, "Oh my Lord, we are so fallen. We're more fallen than Madai and his brother Saka, I think it is." And they are like, "Yeah, we have worked for people who are fallen. We've taken service for people who are fallen, like this king, this Muslim king, and therefore we are no better than dogs, because anyone who takes a master other than the Lord is just like a dog, and he's a nuisance. He's barking at everyone. He's carrying out heinous things to impress the master. So he's no more greater than a dog." And I felt attacked by that, but I'm just remembering that about reading about the Brahminical class, and it's probably coming from that, like how when you take a different master as opposed to the original master, God, Krishna, then one is considered, you're as good as a dog, because your master is someone who's from the material world, someone who's not leading by religious principles a lot of the time, not always, but one who's got no substance spiritually. I think in that initiation lila, Srila Prabhupada makes his divine grace, Srila Prabhupada makes the comment, or that at the time, whoa, I just lost my train of thought. Okay, we'll get back to it. I just went, "Shh, Krishna. I think he's protecting me from saying something untoward." Let's go on. If I remember it, I'll say it. Um, that the position of the two brothers, Dabari, Dabira Kasa and Sankashan Malika, they belong to highly situated Saraswati Brahmana community. But when they were ostracized due to their acceptance of the ministerial position in of the government of Hassan Shah, it is the grace of Lord Chaitanya that he accepted these two exiled personalities as his disciples and raised them. to the highest position of Goswami, to the of Goswami and the highest position of a Brahminical culture. Similarly, Lord Chaitanya accepted Haridas Thakur as his disciple, although Haridas happened to be born in a Muslim family. Lord Chaitanya later on made him an acharya and of chanting the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Imagine how beautiful. So these two brothers were actually born into a Brahminical family. Backstory. Smalling and a backstory. They were actually born to a very well, you know, read. They know the Vedic scriptures, but they took on these positions as ministers within the government. And because of this, like I said, like it said in the reading earlier, they were then ostracized from the Brahminical culture and left alone. They were then given names. They had names. I'm not sure if we know what their names were before. I personally don't. I'm sure someone will put it in the comments section. Please. And because they had these names, they introduced themselves to Mahaprabhu by these names, and they felt as though they were fallen. And they asked Mahaprabhu for mercy, and they're like, please accept us. We are the most fallen. We're more fallen than even the people who are imprisoned to sense gratification, because we have taken up so many things, like taking on a new master. We have done all these things within the government, taking on new names. We are serving meat eaters. We are serving in the government of meat eaters, and they felt like that was the biggest blow. They're like, and then Srila Prabhupada makes the comment that if one is a meat eater by association, they are a meat eater. I go, okay, but he also goes on to say other things. So you should read it. It's so beautiful. I think that should be our next read. It's a very nice Leela. Anyway, going on. Lord Chaitanya's principle is universal. Anyone who knows the science of Krishna consciousness and is engaged in service to the Lord is accepted as being a higher position than a person who's born into a family of a Brahmana. I guess this is why they introduced themselves as just like Muslims to Lord Chaitanya, because this it says that one has a greater chance when they are born into when they are born as like us, as opposed to those who are born in Brahminical families. So I'd like to read that again, just to encourage all of us who are not born in Brahminical families and may feel some type of way. Lord Chaitanya's principle is universal. Anyone who knows the science of Krishna consciousness and is engaged in the service of Krishna is accepted as being in a higher position than those born in a Brahman family, in a family of Brahmins. This is the original principle accepted by all Vedic literature, especially the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. The principle of Lord Chaitanya's movement is educating and elevating everyone to the exalted post of Goswami is taught in the Nectar of Devotion. Lord Chaitanya met the two brothers, Dabira Kasa and Sankara Malika, in the village known as Ramakali, in the district of Madala, and after meeting the brothers decided to retire from the government service. Government servants enjoying Lord Chaitanya. Dabira Kasa, who was later to become Rupa Goswami, retired from his post and collected all the money he had accumulated during his service. It is described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that he accumulated savings in gold coins, equaled to millions of dollars, filled in a large boat. Imagine, hey, balling out of control. He divided the money in a very exemplary manner, which should be followed by devotees in a practical and in particular, and by humanity in general. 50% of his accumulated wealth was distributed to Krishna conscious persons, namely Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. 25% was distributed to relatives, and 25% was kept against emergency expenditure and personal difficulties. That is so exemplary. Like, can you imagine if, like, people who went on retirement, especially these billionaires, did this? Like, 50% goes to your church, your mosque, the people that you associate with, the people that you want to take care of. 25% your relatives. You know, in many religious and spiritual movements, there's this idea of when one joins this movement, the family dies. And of course, it is encouraged that, we mustn't be so attached to the family. But it doesn't mean like they're no longer human. I think if you really want to gain their respect and their trust, and for them to even appreciate what you're doing and to give you their blessings and well wishes, we ought to remember them, in everything, in the things that we do, even in sharing these scriptures and in our readings, in whatever we accumulate, but also remind them that this is God's energy. This is, Lakshmi. So me passing it on to you is Lakshmi. They might be like, I don't take things from other religions or whatever. But when it comes to money, a lot of people don't care if it's given to you by a red person, an orange person, whatever kind of person. If they had horns, if they had ears that were like facing north or south or whatever, they are very willing to accept it. But I'm trying to make the point that it's important that we don't forget our relatives when we join spiritual and religious movements, because then we become very disturbed and we become almost like other we as bonabantu basically, and that's not a nice thing to do, especially in the world that we live in. We ought to remember everyone and see everyone as a part and parcel of the supreme whole. So yeah, very exemplary thing to do, that you keep some for yourself, for in case you're in trouble. 50% goes to other brahmanas and Vaishnavas, and the other 25% goes to, you know, your family. Oh, we've got names there. Rupa Goswami was Santabasha Bhatta and Amaram Bhatta. Oh, okay. It's good to know. That's lovely. Okay, cool. Thank you. Who's our name? Thank you. Um, where were we? Rupa Goswami later met Lord Chaitanya in Prayaga, Al- Allahabad, India, and in Dasavyameda, bathing Gata, of the holy city of the Lord's instruction. Of that holy city, the Lord instructed him to continuously for 10 days. This is where listening is important. For 10 days, he was hearing from the Lord. I love that Leela, by the way. You should read it one day. The Lord particularly instructed Rupa Goswami on the science of Krishna consciousness. These teachings of Lord Chaitanya to Rupa Goswami Prabhupada were narrated in our books in our books titled Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Later, Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada elaborated on the teachings of the Lord with profound knowledge and of revealed scriptures and authoritative reference for all various Vedic literature. Srila Srivana Acharya described this prayer of the Goswamis, that they were all highly learned scholars, not only in Sankirta and Sanskrit, but in foreign languages such as Persian and Arabic. It's important also at part, especially in Southern Africa, to take the example of the Acharyas. It is beautiful that we are reading in English and we are able to reach a large population of people, but it is equally important for us to be able to translate these books and get people who are qualified to translate, and for us to be able to distribute the books in the languages of the people around where we are. It's important because I think it was Nelson Mandela who had said, "You speak to a man in the language that he understands, and it goes to his head." He's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. You speak to a man in the language, his home language, and it goes to his heart. He realizes that you're actually, this person is speaking to me. Have you ever had a foreign person or someone from a different country come to you, or a different culture come to you and say a few words in your culture just trying to impress you? It's so sweet. Sometimes it's gimmicky, like some people just do it like in a very annoying way. Don't do that. But a lot of the times, especially when it comes to scripture, it is so sweet to hear it in our own languages or in our home languages. It's so beautiful. Um, okay, they are very they okay. So after we've read that they were learned in different languages such as Persian and Arabic, they were very scrutinizing student the studies of all. They scrutinizingly studied all Vedic scriptures in order to establish a movement of Lord Chaitanya on the authoritative principles of Vedic knowledge. The present Krishna consciousness movement is also based on authority of Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada. We are therefore generally known as Rupangas. Yay! Or followers in the footsteps of Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada. It is only for our guidance that Srila Rupa Goswami prepared his book, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is now presented in the form of the Nectar of Devotion. Woo! Hey, fourth day of 2021 and the second day of the wisdom readings, and we're getting very, very sweet readings. I particularly like the pastimes of Srila Rupa Goswami and his brother Sanatan Goswami. They are very, very sweet. They are very humble, incredibly humble, and they really show what it means to be a devotee in the truest sense. Like they could really elevate themselves and be like, yeah, but we know these things. We grew up in these families, but when they met the Lord, they were really humble, and they just like, you know, bowed down to the Lord, and just like took shelter of Him and begged for mercy, begged, literally begged for mercy. And I recall in that Leela that I was talking about earlier, before the initiation, they were begging for mercy and saying, actually, for you to prove that you're merciful, you should show your mercy with us because we are so fallen. We actually would be the greatest example of what your mercy looks like. Imagine. Can you imagine? Like people, even after Srila Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had told them that, hey, you have been my disciples in a previous life also, they still were like, we're fallen. Please show us some mercy, and you will be the most merciful. You'll be known as the most merciful. So they are a brilliant example of how to be and how to conduct our lives as devotees. If you have any questions, please type them out in Facebook and in the YouTube chat panel or comments section, and I will be able to read them. Before I leave today's wisdom readings, we were reading the second chapter, and it is a very beautiful chapter. Okay, first chapter, sorry. It was very beautiful. We've got a question from Bongisipo or a comment. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Bongisipo. Happy New Year. Very informative reading, Mataji. How does one associate with family members who are not interested in spiritual life? Gangani gangani. Bit by bit. What are they interested in? I think that's what one needs to find out. I remember there was this one time, um, this gentleman was coming to fix our stove. It had exploded. One of the plates of the stove had exploded, and he was talking to my brother, and he was like, "Do you know that you're so special?" And my brother was like probably 15 or 16 at the time. He's a cool kid. He didn't care. Someone is telling him he's special. He's like, "Oh my gosh!" He's like rolling his eyes and looking at me, and he's like, "You are one and 8,400,000." And I was like, hey, I know this. And he started preaching Krishna consciousness. Turns out he's actually a devotee. And he's just an electrician. And wherever he goes, he starts to preach. So he was trying to look at like what my brother is doing. He could see my brother's interested in games, and it's like, even in these games, they're based on scripture. And he started like, I think it was Fourth Night or something, like a game that my brother was really interested in at the time. And he started explaining like how they've stolen these concepts from like Vedic literature, like long, long ago. And he's like, do you watch anime? Yeah, anime is like the direct example of how they stole it. And like he was introducing philosophy through where my brother was and what my brother was interested in. I think you could sense that my brother was so over it and like being told he was special. It was like, oh my gosh, am I five? No, please stop. But he could see like, oh my god, I could talk to this person. If he's not walking away, I could still like preach to him in a way that is like he can reach. Since then, I'd invited him to the temple. He's a great devotee, amazing, amazing person. But he goes around wherever he is, whoever is willing to listen, and he preaches Krishna consciousness through his job. Just like, please pass me this. He wants the people he's working for, his clients, to be engaged. Like he can get the screwdriver himself, he can get the whatever himself, but he chooses to ask the people to be close by so that he can engage with them, so that he can show them, oh, this is what's broken. And he always tells them like, oh, electricians, they'll overcharge you, whatever, whatever. So I want to show you how to fix it the next time. But more so, he's not doing it so you can fix it the next time. He's doing it so he can build a relationship with you, and also get you to go read the books. And he'll tell you, oh, it's from this book, it's from the Bhagavad Gita, it's from the this. And that's another way in which you can get your family to get involved in spirituality, or in anything that is involved with like spiritual reading or religiousness or Krishna consciousness, is meet them where they are. Case by case example. You can find that you may be able to preach to your cousins, and your cousins are more liked by their aunties, and you can't preach to your auntie, and like that they'll be preaching to your aunties when they get home. You can find that you might have like things that are in like a similar, maybe you like gardening. You can get a few things around that, like how the one seed is containing this huge flower or this huge banyan tree, and tell that pastime. um there's so many things to do, but meet people where they are, and don't be like, um you know like you're chastising people, like, you must believe in God. If you don't believe in God, therefore, people don't like that. But meet people where they are. People are really eager to listen, especially when you can relate it back to what they're doing. For example, if someone is reading the Bible, there's so many similarities within the Bible and biblical text. I mean, when we're reading in the book club, when we're reading Krishna book, there's so many things we're like, we've seen this in the Bible, and like, who did it first? Who plagiarized who? There are so many opportunities to do that, but you have to be more aware of your surroundings, aware of the people that you live with, and accommodating of them. And that way you can introduce them to spiritual text and, yeah, life of spirituality. Ganmani, ganmani. Yeah, thank you. Incredible answer. Thank you so much. Thank you, Wangisipa. Thank you. Do you have any more questions? I don't know. Maybe we do. Yeah, in the new year, I challenge all of us to be compassionate. Emotional maturity when dealing with other people is so important, because if life is difficult for us and we are able to engage with Krishna consciousness and with devotees and with such exalted knowledge, such elevated knowledge, just imagine how difficult it is for other people. I'm not saying that they don't have this knowledge or they don't have knowledge that they can fall back on, but just imagine how difficult it is for the next person. It's important to be so, so, so compassionate to everyone and to share what we have. Like, it's easy to be greedy with this knowledge because, wow, it's just nectarian. But I encourage all of us to be more compassionate to other people, to the people that we fellowship with, the people we go to the temple with, to people we work with, to the people in our schools, and to humble ourselves in situations. And yeah, sometimes you need to show that you've got the hood of a snake, like that one devotee, disciple snake of Pyo Narada Muni, but compassionately. The snake didn't bite the kids. It just showed its hood and said, I still have a hood, don't mess with me, but compassionately. So it's important to be compassionate, and I think this is one year that we can really exercise that compassion, because we've seen what the pandemic has done and how much havoc it has wreaked on all of us. No one can say that they weren't affected by the pandemic in any way. So compassion is the one way that we can really get through it. I'm not seeing any more questions at the at the present moment. So I will close off today and say thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your continued support in 2021, and I hope that it continues in 2022. Catch you next week again for another wisdom reading. Come back tomorrow for Itu. She will be serving us chapter 2, the incredible Itu. And as the week go on, we'll have book club on Thursday. Hey, I've been inviting people to the book club, but Anise, what's the problem? Like, what would you like? Say the number, and I'll write a check out for you. I'm inviting you, please come to the book club on Thursdays. On Friday, we have the incredible Khosi Prabhu. On Saturday, we have Ask a Monk with Savya Sachi Prabhu. And on Sundays, we have Bongi Sipu Prabhu. And we start the whole thing again with Kulu Prabhu on Mondays. So catch you again next week from another reading from Bhakti, the art, yeah, the art of devotion. Yeah, from me, it's a good night. Nlaleni kahle sonibona futhi ngivike lizayo. Hare Krishna.